has stated that the holy name is more merciful than Krishna. And the reason that is true is because even though we reject Krishna, the holy name won't reject us. And the holy name allows us to come back to Krishna by entering in a relationship with Krishna in his name, which is non-different from Krishna. And even if someone isn't that inclined for Krishna consciousness, if they still chant, they'll become inclined. So not only is the holy name allowing us to approach him, but he's also kind of causing us to want to approach him, even when we don't, or causing us to want him, to want more to approach him than we actually do by chanting. So this demonstrates that Krishna is so desirous of us coming back that through the holy name he's actually in a sense interfering. Shri Radha Madhava Ki Jai. He's actually in a sense interfering with our independence. Because as you probably know in Bhagavad Gita, it is said that Krishna never interferes with the living entity's independence, and Krishna tells us don't interfere, but the holy name is interfering. Because even if you don't have that inclination, but somehow or other you chant, it will interfere with your independence. You won't want to be independent. So that's a manifestation of Krishna's desire to call us back and engage us in rasa, or relationship with him. So the holy name therefore is a manifestation of the highest mercy of Krishna, because as we know, Mahaprabhu is the most munificent avatar, so he's giving the most mercy, and he gives that mercy through the holy name. So the holy name is a manifestation of Mahaprabhu's mercy. And Mahaprabhu's mercy is Mahabandhanaya avatar. It's the most merciful form Krishna has ever given, and mercy is given through the holy name, for which we can all awaken ecstatic love of Krishna without any qualification, and as I just said, practically even without desire, just somehow or other you chant Hare Krishna. When we were young, there was a movie called Hair, so sometimes the song from Hair, which had the Hare Krishna mantra, would come on the radio, and we would chant, and we didn't know what it was, and my friends would chant and joke and laugh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So that holy name was working on us. So it was interfering with our independence to avoid Krishna, and awakening some Sukriti, Agyata Sukriti, some Bhakti Sukriti, and we didn't even want it. We were just chanting. So people hear the Kirtan. There's so much benefit, even if they don't want the benefit. So in that way, the holy name is more merciful than Krishna, and we can understand that in Kali Yuga it has to be that way, because Mandasu Mandamatayo, as the Bhagavatam says, Kali Yuga people are lazy, and you might think, well, they don't seem lazy, they work really hard. It's spiritually lazy, not materially. So there's no real impetus for spiritual life, or strong impetus. So the holy name is so merciful, it creates that impetus. One time, devotees were asking Prabhupada, if someone comes to Krishna consciousness, what Sukriti did they do? And Prabhupada said, you didn't do any. He said, I created your Sukriti, so I give you the holy name, there's your Sukriti. So that's Krishna's mercy. You're not even qualified. You need some Sukriti, and you're an atheist, and you chant Hare Krishna, and you get Sukriti. Even you're against Krishna, and he comes to you somehow or other. So, yes. So I think it's very important to be aware of how much love is coming through the holy name, because that's Krishna's, we're calling to Krishna, but that's Krishna's calling to us. Here, I'm calling for you. How am I calling for you? I'm calling for you by giving you my name, because if you chant this name, we will come in relationship. So I'm calling for you to come in relationship, but I don't know how to get you in that relationship because you're so busy avoiding me. And you're so caught up in your life, and I don't know how to fit in. And I tried to fit in, and I spoke Bhagavad Gita, and it didn't work. So I have to do something which you're not even aware of. It just has to work on you, and you don't even have to have a desire for it. But somehow you take it, and it will work on you and awaken your love of God. So that shows how anxious Krishna is for us. That he'll do anything because it didn't work. It didn't work. I have to come back. Like someone repairs your house, repairs your roof, and there's a leak in it, and okay, you call him up. Okay, I have to come back. So Mahaprabhu did his. Lord Sri Krishna did his program, but then he thought, this is people, they don't want to surrender. So, and Prabhupada wrote in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Krishna says surrender, and Mahaprabhu says chant Hare Krishna, it's the same thing because that is surrender, but it's surrender without surrender, so to speak. Because he's saying, you just chant, you don't have to do anything. It's like, how many times did Prabhupada say, you don't have to shave your head, you don't have to change your dress, you don't have to change anything. Just chant Hare Krishna. But Krishna says, Sarva Dharmam Paritaja. You have to do some things. So that's the light, the easy form of surrender in Kali Yuga. Prabhupada said it's the same thing, but it's easier. Because it's the way people can do it. So it's nice when you're chanting to feel that this chanting is not only your call to Krishna, but it's his call to you. That's what he's given. He's given us to call us back to him in a relationship. Now, sometimes a devotee might feel that I'm very sinful, very fallen, I've turned my back on Krishna, and I'm not at all qualified. And I have a dirty heart. It's full of lust, it's full of greed, full of envy. And I don't have much compassion. I don't really care about other people. As long as I get my pakoras, chapatis, and dal and chutney, I'm happy. If you don't get it, well, that's too bad. But I don't care that much. So now I'm looking at my heart, and I'm thinking, why would Krishna want a relationship with me? I'm not even that nice. Not nice enough to be his friend anyway. So why would he want it? And sometimes in thinking why would he want it, a devotee may have some second thoughts about becoming Krishna conscious, feeling like maybe I'm not deserving of it. Maybe, if I finally made it to Vaikuntha and Krishna saw me, he'd say, get out of here. I don't like you, you're not ready, whatever it may be. So this question was actually asked to Prabhupada. Why would Krishna care about me? Do you ever think like that? Like, he's already got enough people. He doesn't need me. I'm down here, I ran away from him, and I only think of him when I need help. Why would he want such a person like that? He's got the cowherd boys, the gopis, Mother Yasoda. He's got, why would a person with a Maserati, want one of those little smart cars or, electric, he wouldn't. So Prabhupada said that Krishna doesn't see it that way because he sees us in our pure potential. In other words, he sees us in the pure form of loving him because that's the only way you're going to have a relationship with him anyway, right? Is through love. So he sees that that's your nature, and that's how ultimately you would relate to him. So Krishna has this very interesting desire. It's for every living entity to engage in rasa with him. That's his desire. He wants everybody. It's not that he has enough already. So Krishna's he's a contradictory figure because he's Atmarama. He's self-satisfied. At the same time, he wants to have a relationship with everybody. That's a contradiction, isn't it? If God is self-satisfied, why does he want to dance with the gopis? What's wrong with him? He should be satisfied with, Rukmini and Satyabhama. But we understand that Krishna has the desire to engage in loving exchanges with his devotees and with his potential devotees also. So Prabhupada said, you have 10 fingers, and if one finger's diseased, and you go to the doctor, you wouldn't say, or the doctor wouldn't say, why don't we cut it off, it's diseased. And since you have 9 more, it shouldn't be a problem, right? Yeah, I've got 9 more, what's the loss of one? So Prabhupada said, of course you don't think that way. And he said, Krishna doesn't think that way either. I have so many friends, cowherd boys, gopis, gopas, parents, servants. So if you stay down here in the material world, no loss for me. He said he actually doesn't think like that. He says we're all fingers, and every finger is valuable. So then, it gets more amazing than that. Then, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he discussed this point, and he said that by Krishna's nature, inconceivable potency, he has created us all differently so that each of us has a unique relationship. And the way he explained it was that Krishna gets a unique taste from each devotee, each living entity. That like what Krishna experiences in your relationship is different from her relationship, different from his relationship. So you have Baskin Robbins here, 31 flavors. You have that company? Yeah. So 31 is not enough for Krishna. And so Krishna knows that there's rasa, there's taste from all of you here. And Krishna's sitting, thinking, when are you all going to come back so I can taste it? And you're down here, shopping at the mall, doing whatever. But I'm up there waiting for you because I want rasa with you. And there's a taste from each of you that I want to experience. Isn't that amazing? So that's his nature. That's just his nature. So, whether we're worthy, unworthy, whether we're sinful, pious, whatever we've done, he wants to purify us. And when we're purified, then we can enter a relationship again. Because you can't do it when you're impure because it doesn't work. They won't let you in up there. They'll scan you. They have to scan your pure devotee scanner, and you'll go through beep, 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 lust, greed, anger. Out. Isn't it? Yeah. So then Vishwanath Chakravarti said another interesting thing. As Krishna gets a taste from every living entity, which is unique, each living entity gets a unique taste from Krishna. So your rasa and your taste is different than my taste and his taste. Isn't that amazing? So we understand Krishna's nature is rasa. He likes to enjoy relationships, even though he's self-satisfied. Right? So when you're chanting, it's nice to meditate on these things. Krishna, this is his net, or this is his fishing line for us. The Maha Mantra. Come, take it, grab the bait, take it, and I'll reel you in because I want you, not to eat you, but I want you. And the other meditation, which I have used sometimes in the meditation on japa, is that if Krishna wants me, I have to get ready, right? Your mother wants to see you, get dressed, hurry up, she's waiting for you. So us getting dressed and ready is getting purified, right? We put on the clothes of purification. So Krishna is waiting for me, and Prabhupada said, go back to Godhead in this lifetime. So it sounds like, well, I'll go back to Godhead in this lifetime, that will be a selfish thing. I'll try, but it's for myself. But actually Krishna wants you, he's waiting. So we're not just chanting for our own self-purification, but we're chanting because Krishna is waiting for us to become purified, so we're qualified now to exchange rasa. So he's waiting for that rasa, but until we become purified, he can't fully relish it. Relish a little. He likes us chanting. But one time I was giving a talk in Delhi at a school, and I think the owner or the principal was there. And we were talking about getting out of the material world. And at the end of the class, he said, if you live a pious life and you're happy and you do good and you're due to your piety, you're creating a good next life. Why would you have to get out of the material world? Why can't you just stay here? And so I said, because Krishna's waiting for you. That's why. And I don't think you ever heard anybody say that. I actually don't think I ever said that before that night, but that was what dawned on me as the best answer. And he accepted it. Because really you can't, even if everything's perfect here, but God's waiting for you up there. So, you have a nice house here, your parents in India, they want you back. You can sell your house and go, So it can be an impetus to chant with more devotion, chant more purely, upgrade your chanting, to know that I could, in this life, if I apply myself, go back to Krishna, and that's what he wants, and that's what Prabhupada wants. So your pure chanting will please Krishna, because you'll become pure. And the more you become pure, the more you become pleasing to Krishna. Because the more you become pure, there's more love. There's less lust, greed, anger, and so forth. And that's what pleases Krishna. And if you're doing bhakti and it's full of ulterior motives, that's not so pleasing to Krishna. But the more pure it is, the more he's pleased. And the more well we chant, the more pure we become. And then we get to please Krishna by our purity. Is that okay? So, we have till 1:30. What should we do? More kirtan or questions? Or you want me to... Maharaj, you want to speak?
I'd like to listen more to you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Perhaps you could speak more about going back home after death, because there are devotees that do say that I'm being selfish by going back.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, rasas. What rasa? You want me to tell you your rasa? You're a gopi. You make flower garlands for Lalita and Vishaka. Start practicing now. One devotee, he went to Radhakund and they said, you're a peacock. Start practicing, the devotees saw him. What are you doing? Oh, I was told I was a peacock. True story. One answer to this question, which I think is probably the most obvious, is in the lecture when Prabhupada was talking about Bilvamangala Thakur and the prostitute. Actually, in one lecture Prabhupada said she really wasn't a prostitute, she was his girlfriend. But girlfriend and prostitute are the same thing. It's just a different name for the same thing. So it's generally referred to as prostitute. Nowadays it's referred to as girlfriend. In those days it was referred to as prostitute because that's what you do with your girlfriend. Nowadays you have to take them out to dinner and a movie, and that's how you pay. In those days, I guess it was just straight. So Prabhupada told the story. Bilvamangala Thakur was instructed by his girlfriend to go to Vrindavan and give up this relationship with her because previously he was a Brahmin and he's wasting his energy on her. And so Prabhupada said she became his guru, or she was a Siksha guru to him. And then Prabhupada said, and your guru will have to come back and get you. If you don't become Krishna conscious, please don't make me come to the prostitute house to save you. So, the Prabhupada's saying, my agreement is to take you back to Godhead, and your agreement is to not resist. Basically, I'm going this way, just hold on my dhoti, we're going. There's one devotee, you know this devotee, Vishal? You ever met Vishal? Yeah. So Vishal's he is a unique devotee. Kind of humorous, not intentionally, but he is humorous. I mean, he's, I could say maybe entertaining. And he asked Prabhupada a very good question. He said, should we desire to go back to Godhead? or should we desire to stay in this world and serve? And when he asked that question, he was a young devotee. He wasn't pure devotee. And so Prabhupada said, no, you should desire to go back to Godhead, because in your state, if you come back, so-called to preach, you might get sidetracked. Then there was a letter in which, I forget the question that was asked, but this was discussed in the letter, and Prabhupada said Sankirtan is the highest service. And then he said if it's higher, to save yourself. Because a neophyte could, in doing Sankirtan, leave Krishna consciousness if he's not careful to purify himself. So he said, in priority-wise, first thing is save yourself. Obviously, you can't save anyone if you're not saved. So Prabhupada quoted that, physician, heal thyself. So we can see going back to Godhead as a service to our spiritual master who's helping us, or a service to Prabhupada who wants us to go back to Godhead. Gather all these souls, get them back to Godhead. Now, if you reach a stage where your compassion is so intense that you really are in anxiety, that you're really in anxiety that you would go back to Godhead with all these conditioned souls, and you're willing to accept suffering and karma and repeated birth to save them, then at that stage, naturally, that's how you'd feel. I don't want to go back to Godhead I don't want to go back to Godhead alone. And that's what Prahlad Maharaj says. That's how he prayed. He said, Krishna, I'm happy hearing and chanting. What doesn't make me happy is that there are people down here who don't know about you. That makes me unhappy. So, if someone evolves to that level, it's not artificial. That's just how they feel. But in general, for those practicing Krishna consciousness, especially those who get initiated, the Guru is taking responsibility to take you back to Godhead, and your responsibility is to go. So if your Guru says, don't go, stay in South London for a few more births, we have big plans for you, no problem. But in general, we want to go back to Godhead because that's to fulfill the desire of Prabhupada. Now, the other thing is, our effort to become Krishna conscious is not selfish in the sense that the more Krishna conscious you are, and I am, the more Krishna conscious will be the people that come in touch with us. Right? The hotter the iron rod, the more it burns. The hotter you are in Krishna consciousness, the more you will affect people's hearts. You'll have a connection, your presence will have a connection right to their heart. It'll change their hearts. So the more Krishna conscious you are, the more power you have to do that, even without speaking, just by your presence. So, even if we say sadhana or kirtan is selfish, but the result of it, or the effect that it will have on our influence on other people, will be more powerful. So by being so-called selfish, we end up helping people. Yes? Does that make sense? And in fact, that's the best way we can help them, by being pure. I mean, obviously, if we were all pure devotees, things would be different, right? If every devotee in ISKCON was on the level of Srila Prabhupada, the world would be different, obviously. So we understand that if we can get to that level, get closer to that level, it's going to make a huge difference. It's not just we get a new temple and everything happens. Things do happen when you get a new temple, but you need pure devotees in the temple to really make it happen. And without pure devotees, one time, I don't know if you heard this walk. One time, Prabhupada said, well, after I go, if you stop preaching, there'll be no more Haribol, Haribol. But he didn't say there'll be no more temples or buildings. We have buildings, so I'm sure the buildings will stay. But he was saying there'd be no life, preaching is our life. But you can expand that and say, if we're not pure, then there's not going to be preaching, so there's not going to be life. So that's the most effective way to spread Krishna consciousness is to be Krishna conscious. And the most effective way to be Krishna conscious is to chant Hare Krishna and have good sadhana and so forth. So if you're in the right mood when you're doing kirtan or japa, it'll never feel selfish. It'll always feel that I'm of service to both Krishna, to Guru, and to the world. At least that's how we should feel. And sometimes devotees, especially those who are preachers, when they're chanting, when they're hearing, it's very much in service to the world, because they're very much feeling, I need to be equipped to help people. So their personal work, it's not separated from the consciousness that this is for the world. Right? And then it was fairly evident that Prabhupada's mission was to take us back to Godhead. One time he said, grab onto my dhoti and I'll get you in the back door. So, it's like, this is where I'm going, this is where I'm taking you, this is what the movement's about. Back to Godhead magazine. It's all about why you're working so hard, work for Krishna, go back to Godhead. So it was clear that was his mission. So if I'm so-called selfish in trying to become pure, but that's a service to Prabhupada, because he came so you could go back to Godhead. So if you do what he said, that's service to him. Someday you might come to a level where you don't care, but to not care when you don't have that realization, it's not real, it's artificial. I don't care, 1,000 births as a worm in stool, as long as I can serve. It's Bhaktivinoda Thakur. What did he say? Is even as a worm in the home of a devotee, that's the realization of a very. I'll be happy as a worm as long as it's in the home of a devotee. That's the realization of a very high devotee. It's not to be imitated. For us, it's like go back to Godhead, and a few bodhisattvas who achieve enlightenment and agree to stay. That will be natural. But for most of us, if Krishna wants us to stay, that's the point. But we've got indication that he wants us to go. There'll be plenty more people that are staying here to keep the temples together. So I don't really see them as two different consciousness. Sadhana and preaching they're just different sides of the same thing. And then Prabhupada said the preaching enthuses the sadhana. So if the service, the preaching gives you energy for your sadhana, and the sadhana gives you energy for your service. So they work together. Two parts of the railway track, two sides of the railway. One time, a devotee said, I think maybe it's Tripurari, he said, Prabhupada, we just want to come back life after life to distribute your books. And Prabhupada acknowledged, he said, that's a very good desire. So he didn't say it's artificial or whatever. He appreciated that mood. But Prabhupada said, if you give your life to spreading Krishna consciousness, he said to the book distributors, if you give your life to book distribution, you'll go back home, back to Godhead. So that kind of would thwart their desire for life after life, because that's Krishna's desire, that you can do it in this life, and there'll be enough devotees around to preach, unless you're like a special personality that's meant to do some great work. And Krishna says, okay, take birth here and do your thing. You want to add to that? Yes.
And then at the same time, there's an emphasis on relationship between yourself and God and Krishna.
Yes.
That the more you develop that
Yes.
relationship, it becomes less more reverence and more
Yes.
love. You mentioned this in one of your classes. While we're chanting, we must develop that relationship with God and Krishna. So could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that devotees run into or realize or deal with when they have been around 30, 40 years is, okay, I've done 30, 40 years of service, distributed so many books, made so many devotees, put up so many temples, but what about my relationship with Krishna? How's that doing? I think like the husband who avoided the family because he was so busy working. And now, the kids are like 20 and he's looking back and he's thinking, God, I hardly spend any time with him. I have to work on my relationship with my kids. So a lot of devotees go through that. And the question is interesting because some devotees might answer it by saying, if you preach, the relationship will manifest. That's the highest form of service. And we can't deny that. But at the same time, I think we see a natural progression as a devotee advances to a certain point because he's going through stages, and we know those stages, they're described in our scripture. So the desire to understand his relationship becomes stronger. And then on the stage of asakti, it is said, on the stage of asakti, you have a very strong inclination. You don't know what your rasa is. You don't know details, but you have a very strong inclination for a particular rasa. It's just you feel an attraction. So it seems to me like a natural process of advancement that the relationship would want to develop. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, in ruchi, you like the service, but in asakti, you like the person you're serving. So I like kirtan, and in asakti, I'm focused on the relationship. It changes a little bit. So it seems that would happen naturally as part of the process. And the interest in that relationship would naturally grow as one is advanced. I'm feeling this inclination, a strong inclination in particular rasa. What does that mean? Should I read more about that? I'm interested. So you read more about it. How does that feel? Am I resonating with this? I can speak personally for myself that as I progressed in my chanting, that more than anything, living in Mayapur also, those two things I think, progressing in my chanting and living in Mayapur, while I was chanting, I was more conscious of the relationship when I went more deeply than I was as a younger devotee. As younger devotees, it's kind of like, I got to chant my rounds so I can follow the regular principles, as I don't fall on my face today. But when you get over that, and you're more aware of Krishna's presence, then I think that natural inclination for a relationship becomes stronger. And I think also going to Vrindavan does that also, because there's so much lila. The whole Vrindavan area is sprinkled with these intimate lilas. The first time I went on Mayapur Parikrama, and they were describing the lilas, every lila stan, every place we went, I would think, could I take birth in this lila? I just want to be in this lila, Not saying that was because I'm an advanced devotee, but because I was in the Dham and that environment. So it seems at some point of advancement, it's natural to not just think that distributing a lot of books or making a lot of devotees or raising temples or funds is all I need. But you naturally start to consider the relationship and feel it more. And it becomes more important. And then you start to read books that nourish your relationship that maybe you never read before, because it's like now you're hungry for it. And I see that amongst advanced devotees. I especially see that amongst sannyasis, because I've seen sannyasis give lectures to public, like mixed audience devotees in public or young devotees, and it's very rasik. And devotees saying, why did they give that lecture? It's like, so, and I said, because that's what they think about. They don't want to just give you're not the body. They're kind of bored with that. And they're reading all these books and they're contemplating their own relationships. So it seems a natural process that as you evolve, that it happens. And And it seems also congruent with things Prabhupada said, like, I'll reveal it to you when you're ready. And one example was given when this was discussed. Well, should I study literature that would nourish my relationship? And the answer was, well, when you have the appetite, you can digest it. If you don't have the appetite, you'll just get diarrhea. And so read what you can digest according to your level and according to your need. You're struggling to follow the four regular principles and say, I want to enter more into Rasa Lila, then that's a paradox. In a sense, although that will purify you, but you may not be able to enter into it properly until you're more purified. So, but I think also the direction of your question is, when we bring it into Kirtan, that the holy name is personal. And so when we chant, we don't think of Kirtan or Japa as a process, but we think of it as a relationship. I think that's important. Because if we think it as a process, then, Krishna's kind of impersonally present within the process, but he's personally present within the relationship. And so when we're chanting, although we can call it a process, Kirtan or Japa is a process, but the essence of the process is the connection through Kirtan between ourselves and Krishna. So it's more of a relationship than a process. Process tends to be mechanical. And if your chanting is ever mechanical or tends to be mechanical, remembering that it's not a process but a relationship can help make it more real. After like a couple of years of living in Mayapur, I started feeling certain inclinations to a certain rasa, and that I never felt before, and it was like slight. It was just interested. And I could see that naturally what happens when you advance. As you become purified, it just natural spiritual inclinations arise, and there's more interest in cultivating them. And those also empower your preaching. Your relationship with, you're telling people Krishna consciousness is wonderful. If you have something going on every morning, at 5 o'clock with your japa, that's really special. When you say it's wonderful, they look at you and they go, yeah, it must be, because he looks, he's not just saying it's wonderful. You can see he's feeling it. And when Prabhupada started the movement, people saw that. He's talking about Krishna. Like, this Krishna must be special, because when he talks about Krishna, it's like the whole room lights up. So it's never that kind of cultivation. It's never that it should get in the way of preaching, but it should always nourish it. I'm talking about Krishna, and if I got this buddy-buddy relationship with him, and when I'm talking about him, it's like special. When I'm like, Krishna's really cool. You should really get to know him, because I have these amazing experiences with him every morning when I'm chanting. I mean, you have no idea. It's better than beer. It's better than disco. It's better than football. It's not even close to any of these things. And when you say it, you'll say it with such conviction, because that's what you're experiencing every day. So it just, that so-called esoteric cultivation, your relationship, if it's done well, it just spills out into your preaching. Right? Yeah. So, is that okay? Oh, I'm supposed to make an announcement. Am I supposed to make an announcement? Oh, yeah. Many of you know that I do different workshops. But if you don't, I have many workshops that I feel are helpful for devotees. And I've recorded many of them, and many of those are here. We have 11 of those workshops. And we brought the CDs, if you're interested. And we also have Kirtan. So we have a workshop on japa, all about the holy name. And the workshop is like 2-3 days, and it's recorded. And then I have many lectures. And a couple workshops are recorded, so there's actually 50 hours on there. And I have many lectures on forgiveness and workshops, and there's about 30 hours of that. And then we did a sadhana retreat with myself, Badahari, Lakshmi Moni, and we recorded it. And then I did lectures on sadhana. It's really good. Just the title doesn't sound so interesting, but it's actually one of the best CDs, the one on sadhana. It gets into like your whole life and how your life connects with sadhana and the interaction relationships. And then we have one on the mind, which is extremely interesting, and on the subtle aspects of the mind. And then I did a workshop on vows, and I went into the psychology of vows by studying what Prabhupada said about vows. And it's really, really interesting. Like just the whole psychology of what it means to commit. And by hearing this CD, it really prepares you to evaluate whether you've committed to something or not and how to commit. And we realize that a lot of people, they equate inspiration and commitment. Yeah, I'm very inspired. And they think they're committed. They're just inspired. And then, and then there was no commitment, so when it hits the floor, there's nothing left. So, we deal with that concept and what it actually means and how your lifestyle has to change if you commit, because you need support systems. So it's really good for vows that we make to our spiritual master. It's good for marriage vows. And then we have one on relationships, one on marriage. And I had decided never to talk about marriage, but one year I've got so many letters and people having bad marriages. I thought, I guess I should try to help. So it's a series of talks on male-female relationships. And then I don't know what else is up there. But I tried in these workshops and talks to address issues that I felt were vitally important in the lives of devotees based on my own experience and my own struggles. So that's what's there. And then there are 2 music CDs. And I'm doing various preaching programs. We've just started a company to reach non-devotees in a way we feel will be easier for them to relate to. So whatever you buy helps our preaching. So buy a lot and buy for all your friends also. And I'm flying out tomorrow, and I don't want to be overweight, so you can help me reduce my weight. Because the main reason I'm overweight is because of these CDs, because I don't fly with much. So that will also help me.
We'll definitely have one set.
Okay. Okay.
But I was just going to say, if you don't want to buy a set, please give something, because Prabhu is just simply traveling and preaching, helping others, and what better cause. If you don't
Thank you.
buy CD, but give something. I would really like to thank Prabhu for taking the time out, 2-hour journey down, 2-hour journey out. He's got another satsang at 4 o'clock. So quick with a push-out. It was so enlightening, and your Kirtan was amazing, and your instructions were great. So big round of applause. And we'd like you back when you come next.
Ask them what they think.
They're happy.
Okay.
They're definitely happy.
Okay. As long as you say they're happy, yeah.
They're
Okay.
definitely happy.
Hare
Just give
Krishna.
a different mood to the whole
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
thing.
Hare Krishna.
We talk.
Yeah,
Do
yeah.
something.
Yeah, we